Right, hey guys, how we doing? Back another video from Totally Not Mark, continuing with the JJK reviews. This is going to be part 2 of Season 1. I know there's like two Season 2 videos out now, so we're gonna play catch up. I got quite a lot of videos I want to react to. But yeah, let's just get straight into it.
Guys, I think I love JUJUTSU Kaisen.
Yeah, which is interesting, because like, he didn't like the movie. I think the movie's not the right place to start, like, with the anime.
I didn't want to say it last week because, well, you know, we had only just really gotten to know each other at that point. I didn't want to seem overzealous, but after binging Season 1 to completion this week...
It's amazing,
if
isn't it?
I've learned, it's that dumb, trivial things like familiarity, time, and the real world only stand to get in the way.
It's
or at
true.
least that's what Toto says, and he's got a 530,000 IQ, so who am I to argue with that? For real though, JUJUTSU Kaisen surprised me this week. Last time, Gege Akutami demonstrated that he could tell a solid story with good characterization. This week, I wanted to see if he could execute a traditional battle shonen's most important element,
and my god, he
the
delivers.
fights. Did he succeed? No. He didn't just succeed. He exceeded every single expectation I had. With each passing episode, JUJUTSU Kaisen just keeps getting better.
I'm curious though as to whether he's going to continue with the manga after finishing Season 2 or not, because I hope he does, but I don't blame him if he doesn't, because it's easier for the videos editing wise and that if he has video to show us, the viewer.
The material covered in the prior 13 episodes proved that JJK could weave a nice story peppered with solid action. This week was a whole other kettle of salmon because this next section is all fighting. We already know that JJK can tell a solid narrative. We've got Gojo's conspiracy theory concerning Yuji's fate with the school, we've got terrifying villains, and a growing cast of compelling, colorful characters. But, in my opinion, the true marker of quality for a battle shonen is in its ability to use combat as a stage for drama.
Yes. Exactly. A lot of these fights in this, like, there's other stuff going on instead of just the fight, which is why Naruto's fights work so well. There's a story being told at the same time as the fight happening.
That's what this Kyoto Sister School exchange event thing is. More than just another arc, this was JJK's only chance to make a good first impression on me when it came to combat-fueled storytelling. I'm not going to lie, I was anticipating this greatly. I was on the edge of my seat, hoping that Akutami could show me something impressive. Yuji's reveal was played for laughs, it was funny, but that's not what I was here for. With conviction, I waited. The rules of the event were explained and the team stood at the ready. Still, I waited. I leaned into my computer, unblinking. Could Akutami leverage the intensity and pressure of a battle to reveal truly compelling and emotional stories?
Yes.
Sometimes in life, you fail to appreciate just how special something is until it's gone, with nothing more than a vacuum of its greatness left in its echo. As a kid, I watched Goku and Vegeta duke it out, not knowing that I would never see something like that ever again. I didn't appreciate it at the time, and that has haunted me for 25 years. However, for Todo versus Yuji, my eyes and mind were ready.
Mate.
What kind of woman is your type? Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh yeah, when he starts having these weird like flashbacks that never happened of them together, it's like, what? It's so cool.
Todo asked the question, I laughed. Yuji's answer is exactly what he wanted. I laughed again. And when Todo's mind slipped us into this fucking insane 2 minute...
So bad in it. It's like, what?
The 2-minute long daydream about a fictional friendship he and Yuji could have had? I kid you not, I laughed for at least a minute
It's
straight,
just
until
genius.
finally we returned to reality and are hit with this face. I was crying tears of pure bliss, basking in and appreciating this moment for what it was, and it was
perfect.
Yeah.
Everything, down to the last minute details.
What helps Yuji versus Todo stand out within this arc of wall-to-wall fights is that they don't really fight. Outside of its outstanding value as a comedic set piece, Todo vs. Yuji serves as both a vehicle for setup and dissension within the Kyoto School's priorities. Moments prior to the competition's beginning, we're shown a brief glimpse into the Kyoto principal's debriefing on Gojo's group. During his talk, the emphasis is squarely placed on Yuji. Most troublingly, when he says Sukuna's vessel isn't an actual person, and that they need to prioritize his death. And while Todo is the only one to outright dismiss taking that order, Chad move by the way, at the moment he's too busy fantasizing about his new best friend forever to notice several of his teammates attempting an ambush on Yuji's life. Holy shit! I don't know why I'm surprised here. Maybe because the entire build-up to this contest has been dedicated to downplaying Yuji's involvement and abilities within the team. But whatever the case may be, that was sick.
Yeah, it's class.
Even when he gets too close, he just zooms away like a madman. Oh wait. Oh
no.
He's surrounded.
Oh no.
Someone's gotta do something. Wait. Did Todo just teleport?
Yeah, he did. Oh my god. And then that's the introduction to his technique, isn't it? Brilliant.
I have absolutely no idea what's going on.
Yep.
Overall, this introduction to the combat storytelling of Gege Akutami left me thrilled and excited. Just when you think you know what this fight is going to be about, suddenly he turns it into a slice-of-life romance manga, then into an action thriller with high stakes and a bunch of moving pieces. The convergence of several members from each school into one location to both attack and defend Yuji creates a cacophony of chaos on screen, creating the perfect opportunity to establish Todo as an unlikely voice of order when he refocuses his meeting with Yuji. And again, it's not to fight to the death, no, these guys are of course friends forever now, that is canon.
Oh yeah, of course,
If they ever betray each other, I will be so upset. Instead, he trains him. And with that, they fade into the background of the story.
Yeah, this is the kind of loose introduction to the Black Flash, isn't it?
Wow, something I was hoping would actually happen because there's just too many characters in this story not to give them their own spotlight to explore their own personalities and stories.
Excuse me.
Ekamaru versus Panda.
Yo.
Not a panda. This was a brilliantly engaging fight, and I know that for a fact because going into it, my familiarity with these characters amounted to
nothing.
Robot guy with a gun and
with a panda.
And guess what? I wasn't even right about that. Panda isn't a panda, apparently. Color me surprised. Mekamaru, the remote-controlled animatronic assassin versus Panda, the most panda not panda I've ever seen, is an outstanding example of a fundamental shonen writing trope I like to call complementary opposition. Think of it this way. What is the difference between this and this? Some of you might say that one is physical and the other, well, isn't, but in essence, whether it's on the page or on the screen, substantively, they are virtually identical. It's just a conflict presented in different ways. While in drama, the language of the story is dialogue, in the absolute best of battle shonen stories, their language is intense and oftentimes life-threatening combat. This quality of battle shonen is what makes fights like this not only viable, but eminently entertaining. It's not just fighting. Goku vs. Vegeta is a story about superiority between a bigoted elite and a modest commoner. Naruto vs. Sasuke is high expectations versus insurmountable doubt, and Mekamaru vs. Panda is no less complicated. It's a story of resentment and hate versus acceptance and optimism under similar circumstances, and it's illuminating. Just like a drama utilizes conflict through conversation to establish its characters, Akutami uses fists instead.
I'm kinda pissed off now.
He's a fucking gorilla! That is so cool! Okay. Panda isn't a panda. I get it now. He's a gorilla, a panda, and a...
Undisclosed.
Jokes aside though, this is another cool example of exposition through combat. To kick off the fight, Panda, who isn't a panda, got shot through the heart. And you're to blame! You give okay, I'm gonna stop now. I would normally class this injury sustained by Panda as a grade 1 boo-boo, but he shakes it off as if nothing happened.
Because he has 3 hearts, doesn't he?
This, I thought, was an example of an anime doing dumb anime shit, but no! I'm sorry for ever doubting you, Akutami. Panda, who isn't a panda, has 3 entities dwelling within him that he can shift to in a pinch. And while that bullet certainly hit its mark, Panda's determination to continue fighting demonstrates that these entities aren't a combined measure of his cursed energy, but instead closer to something like Pokemon he can switch out to when he needs... Oh wait, no! Ben 10. Panda's Ben 10.
Yeah, let's take that. That's cool. Yeah.
Anyway, he describes the Gorilla Core as one that specializes in strength, which, you know... that tracks. And he describes the Panda Core as a mode focused on balance of what I assume is Gorilla and that mysterious third core. So let's try and predict what his third core might be. With Gorilla focused on attack and Panda acting as a midpoint between both extremes, his sister core that he describes as Bashful, I feel has to focus on defense or endurance, right? But with Bashful being a synonym of shy, I'm inclined to believe it's going to be something like a turtle or armadillo. High defense with a visual display of bashfulness. But then again, bashful could also imply a desire to hide, making creatures like the cuttlefish, chameleon, and other big cats like tigers and cheetahs ideal candidates for camouflage. Or maybe it could just be a bulky elephant that uses its big ears to hide its eyes, I don't know. But right now, my money is on the cheetah because there's a camo element in addition to a speed boost. Now, it will be entertaining to see how far off I actually was in the end, but I'll update you. The conclusion
I can't even remember.
of the fight comes about the same way any dialogue-heavy argument would, with each character offering a counter to the other's point until they eventually reach a resolution, after which there is no longer any comeback. It's revealed that Panda's backstory as the Tokyo Principal's masterpiece is as wild as it is disturbing. With him being a cursed corpse mutation born with emotions, his origin is a far cry bleaker than the gag character he was initially presented as. But I think one of the most unsettling and objectifying lines in this entire episode came from the principal of Tokyo School when he referred to Panda as his masterpiece. There's something so dirty about that phrasing. On the other hand, Mekamaru isn't a cursed corpse like his opponent is. In fact, he's technically not alive at all. The entity Panda's fighting is an avatar controlled from afar by the real Mekamaru himself, a tormented and resentful soul that was dealt a terrible hand at birth. With his body greatly diminished and vulnerable, he was gifted in exchange a massive amount of cursed energy through which he controls his puppets. As the fight rages on, ideas are exchanged, personalities are revealed, and more questions are asked and answered. But in the end, it was that mechanic that was revealed through combat that determined the winner. Through embracing what makes him unique and strong, Panda emerges victorious, and most definitely not a panda. As a concept for the battle, this was an interesting philosophical one. Mekamaru, due to his physical disadvantages, feels disconnected from his innate humanity. Thematically, this makes his use of a robot avatar all the more visually fitting. Panda, on the other hand, isn't and will never be human at all. Nor will he ever be able to redo his abnormal upbringing. But despite this, he never felt as though who he was made him in any way lesser, nor did he feel it impeded his ability to form lasting connections with others. Just like any great story or any incredible scene, by the end of this fight, we have a resolution. Not just to the physical battle, but to the story of the bout. Sometimes the difference between abject despair and happiness is a willingness to look forward and be open to what good comes your way, rather than living and allowing yourself to be defined by the misfortune of your own past. Maki versus Miwa. If there's one impression this arc left me with, it's that Maki is an absolute badass.
Oh, mate, you've got no clue. You have no clue.
Isn't really so much a rule as it is something I just enjoyed, but it is worth mentioning. A badass character doesn't need to have the best powers to be badass. In the same way fear doesn't preclude courage, limitations don't prevent badassery.
Mate, later on,
in Maki's
oh
case,
my god.
it's her innate disadvantages that make her so damn impressive and, well, intimidating.
Stupid Mai! This woman is no weakling!
I don't think there's a single moment in this entire arc where Maki is made to look less than because of her disadvantages, which is a core element of the story she and her sister Mai share later. But right now, it's pure technique, strategy, and fearlessness on display that overwhelms and surprises Miwa. And it's easy to see why. Unlike many of the other candidates from Tokyo and Kyoto, Maki doesn't have the natural ability or connections they do. And so, winning this competition with all of the opportunities it affords its winners is not just something she wants, but rather needs. In the last fight with Panda and Mekamaru, we are offered a short glimpse into Panda's mind as he ranks all of the competitors on a tier list, presumably based on cursed energy output. This is what made this battle with Miwa so shocking to me. Miwa might not be highly ranked at all, but Maki is at the
lowest.
Very bottom.
Yeah.
But trust me, nothing about this girl screams bottom. By overcoming every perceived disadvantage with clever strategy, optimized physical prowess, and perfect technique, all Miwa can do is just look on in awe. But the story of this fight isn't simply a one-sided beatdown, though that is a very entertaining component of it. Through inaction and hesitancy, Miwa tells a different story. One of the first things I noticed when picking up this season again was the disproportionate amount of internal monologue we received from her. This is weird, not because internal dialogue isn't a legitimate tool for storytelling, it's more so to do with how unfamiliar we are with Miwa when we first experience it. Typically, internal dialogue is something an author uses to keep the audience on the same page as a familiar or central character. Miwa is neither right now. My guess is that Akutami uses it with Miwa to achieve a few things. Number one, he wants Miwa to be seen as a compassionate person compared to the rest of the people on her team. Throughout the meeting with the principal, she presents as doubtful, shocked, and apprehensive at the thought of being ordered to kill Yuji. Number two, Akutami wants us to think of Miwa not as an antagonist, but as a potential ally in the future. Placing the audience in her shoes like this helps to achieve that end. And finally, number three, it makes Maki look even cooler when we know what Miwa's plans are, only for Maki to, step by step, dismantle what little chance this blue-haired girl thought she had. Alright, that was sick. It should go without saying at this point, but I am thoroughly enjoying the animation of this show and the little nuggets of lore being dropped every now and again. I think I've heard the Zenin clan name dropped with regards to Mai, Maki, and Megumi now, so I'll be interested to see where that goes, but my guess is that since there are a number of clans mentioned in this arc, like the aforementioned Zenin clan and Norotoshi's Kamo clan, that these groups have their own signature abilities that are passed down genetically. There's loads of weird stuff like clan leaders fathering children out of wedlock in the hopes of generating the outcome they want, so my theory is that whatever the ability or technique that's associated with the Zenin clan, it's something that Sukuna took great interest in when Megumi seemed poised to unleash it. But only time will tell. Nishiyama versus Nobara. As a quick mention, one aspect of this fight that I loved is that at all times, those from Team Kyoto seem to be distracted. By whom, you might ask? Inumaki, the guy who we haven't seen actually do anything yet. They are all on edge and on guard for his cursed speech. It's a small narrative inclusion, but serves to build up Inumaki as a presence that's able to passively nerf the opposing team without even being on screen. It's super clever. But anyway, just like all the other battles in this arc, this too deals with more than just conflict for conflict's sake. The crux of the narrative here stems from Nishiyama's assertion that there's a disparity between the success of a man and a woman. That men just need to worry about strength, whereas women need to worry about strength while walking the tightrope of maintaining their own appearances. And I think Nobara is the ideal matchup to this, as she's someone that isn't afraid to give it her all, no matter what. There is one aspect of this fight that I find more interesting than Panda's bout, and that is that the answer or resolution to this conflict isn't at all cut and dry. Nishiyama has a point in that oftentimes women can be, intentionally or not, held to a different standard than men. That is objectively not fair, and that does suck. But when I heard Nobara's answer to Nishiyama's complaint, I knew Nobara was going to be a character I adored from here on.
What does she say?
She says, and I quote, "You think misfortune is a free pass to do anything?" Using that as a jumping off point, she points to someone like Maki. Despite her circumstances and additional disadvantages, she never lets those define who she is, what she does, and most importantly, what she can achieve. While it is troubling that some folks have an easier ride than others, you can't allow those additional obstacles to get in your way of success more than they already are. You are, at the end of the day, the only one that can overcome your own adversity, and if you give up, then you yourself become the biggest obstacle to your own success. It's all about perspective, and just like Maki, Nobara chooses action. Furthermore, she outlines an obvious prejudice within Kyoto's group. Together, they condemn Yuji as little more than a curse to be exterminated despite not knowing a damn thing about him. A narrative thread that shares a lot of similarities to that which her friend Sayori experienced back home. But this is a battle shonen. So what does this action offer the story being told? Well, Nobara's counter-offensive actually fits her philosophical point rather perfectly. She was never focused on her own immediate situation. Every perceived miss or failure was actually a move she carried out with a plan for how it could be used later. She doesn't sit and worry about every missed shot. She isn't defeatist in the slightest. She uses those misses specifically to her advantage later, literally and figuratively raising her own standing in the fight to reach Nishiyama. In the process, grabbing the broom she was dared to try and reach moments prior. It's a fantastic visual idea, made all the better with Nishiyama's stubborn and condescending reaction to Nobara's perceived failed attempt, quipping that her efforts are still pointless. But pointless, they most definitely are not. Despite any perceived disadvantage, for someone as tenacious as Nobara, all she needed was one single straw to break this metaphorical camel's back. Who needs advantages when you're good enough to create your own? It's a really powerful fight that speaks to Nobara's desire to not be something for someone else's sake. Determined instead to be who she is unflinchingly, but right as she's about to deliver the finishing blow... yeah, not good. Mai versus Maki. Continuing the agenda of everything Maki does in this arc is pure fire, Akutami finally gives us a showdown between the two sisters, Maki and Mai. And while this is the most cliche battle within this arc so far, I still think it's executed rather well. At the end of the day, cliche doesn't mean bad, it just means that it's not unique. But in saying that, cliches become cliches for a good reason. They work. Established earlier in the story is a clear animosity between Mai and her sister, Maki. However, it's only in this fight that the contempt is brought into focus and more closely explored. From the get-go, Mai expresses that Maki has a talent that she never did. So we're led to believe that there's an element of jealousy there, and perhaps that's true. However, as the fight continues, we're thrust into the past where we get our first glimpse of how Zenin life actually was for them and the sisterly dynamic that defined their lives. Similar to her sister, Mai suffered from being unable to see curses. Unlike her sister, Mai was a very timid child. While Maki was determined to define her own destiny, Mai's life was very much defined by what she couldn't do. Maki was always ambitious, too busy looking to the future to be bothered by what she did or didn't see around her, and that very element was Mai's safety net, something she thought she never could have. And so, while I called this fight cliche, I do think that there are interesting nuances dotted throughout that offer something to contemplate here. When this fight began, I thought that it was motivated by jealousy on my side, but as the story unfolds and more of their shared history comes into focus, it becomes a little more complicated. Maki left her role as a servant in the Zenin clan so that she could be more, and through doing so, inadvertently caused her sister's banishment. And it's their reaction to this outcome that defines what this battle is about. It's ambition versus security. In many ways, these two sought-after traits are mutually exclusive. When Maki left, Mai felt like she was abandoned by the only person she trusted to help her navigate this terrifying place. To her, she lost everything, when in reality, Maki inadvertently taught her something she could never have learned while staying so close to her sister. This is another moment I thought back to Panda's mental tier list. Maki, despite her staggering dominance, sits comfortably at the bottom, but curiously, Mai is noticeably higher, perhaps suggesting that she has more natural potential than her sister ever did, reinforcing a running theme within Akutami's story that no matter how gifted someone is, what determines their strength or success is their perspective. More than their innate cursed energy, it's their innate strength of character that defines who they are. Maki's choice to leave was for her and her alone, but the result robbed Mai of her own agency to define her own path. And that's when we hear perhaps the most surprising line uttered in this arc.
I never wanted to be a jujutsu sorcerer. It's all your fault.
Maki wins this fight, but Mai leaves filled with as much contempt and hatred as when she first entered. But if there's one thing that's for certain, the same scared Mai that clung to her sister every single day as a kid has transformed into a very powerful and comparatively confident woman in her own right. Maki has been heavily featured in this competition, and if there's one thing we know about her for sure so far, it's that managing to surprise Maki with a curse technique she's already familiar with is an achievement worthy of considerable praise in and of itself. And with the fight concluded, we finally get to the penultimate bout of this arc, Megumi versus Noritoshi. Continuing on the trend of each of these fights serving a slightly different function to the last, because this fight doesn't actually reach an end due to, interference, which is awesome, it can't really focus on its own self-contained story like the others have been afforded. This would normally hurt this fight standing for me, but given that it's used to facilitate a subversion of the entire competition later, I'll forgive it. Think of it more as a prelude or appetizer to the main course around the corner. Hope you guys like veggies! Okay, bad joke, whatever. But it's not like this
I
battle
love the
doesn't
American
offer
Office.
anything. It's heavy on exposition, sure, but it also has plenty of sweet animation to trick you into learning the stuff that you don't want to. The most noteworthy element in this fight has to be the fact that both combatants represent, to varying degrees, different notable clans within the sorcery world. The Kamo clan, represented by Noritoshi, and the Zenin clan's reluctant inheritor, Megumi. Also, Megumi can make an elephant now. It's pretty cool. It's revealed that instead of a grade 2
Shadow
golden
summons.
snitch, curse, it was replaced illegally by the Kyoto principal in an effort to snuff out Yuji once and for all. As this is being slowly revealed to us, we follow along with Inumaki for the first time in this competition as he stalks what we now know is an enemy far more powerful than any of them were prepared for. I think anyone watching this would agree that this is a very entertaining swerve. However, it's also, I think, more sophisticated than meets the eye. As any heartbroken fan of HBO's Game of Thrones will tell you, narrative complexity and depth brought about by a myriad of plot lines and character arcs running in parallel serve to create a fast-paced and compelling beginning and midpoint, sure, but when it comes to reining that complexity in to deliver a conclusion worthy of the story being told, well, let's just say that's another skill set altogether. Similarly, this arc had several substantial and independent plot threads interspersed, and yet this one swerve, this one narrative choice, forced every thread to converge into one chaotic ball of tension. And while Megumi and Noritoshi's bout, filled with dark familial motivations and undertones, is abruptly cut short as things were just heating up, what interrupts their dance with destiny is nothing short of a terrifying and unrestrained force.
Oh man, it looks so good as well.
Unlike the other villains in this story, Hanami is the first major returning villain. Despite not having spent much time on screen so far, the little she has offered certainly made a substantial impression on not just me, but the immeasurably powerful Gojo too. But before we dive into the meat of this fight, there's one character that takes center stage that I just need to gush about for a second, and that character is, you might be surprised by this, the silent Inumaki. For this show to sport a relatively silent character isn't exactly novel. Everything from Pokemon with Pikachu to Wallace and Gromit to the Halloween franchise with Michael Myers and of course Mr. Bean, there are tons of these characters ranging from villains to side characters to central protagonists. However, they almost always rely on physical communication, comedy, or, in the most heroic of cases, the exposition of others to talk for them. These are characters that typically let their actions speak for themselves, mostly due to necessity because, they can't talk. But regardless of that, Akutami's handling and reverence for the Inumaki character is honestly something to behold and learn from, because much the same way the characters of Maki and Nobara in their respective fights leverage their perceived shortcomings into strengths, on a meta level, Gege Akutami took the limitations of what a silent character is faced with and turned each and every one of those shortcomings into a mechanism that makes him one of the most impressive character case studies in the entire story.
Hi, Useless Miwa here.
I've got 2 words for you, kid. Fucking sleep.
So, what makes Inumaki one of the best silent characters I've seen in recent memory? Well, firstly, it's the application of him within the story. Being one who's incredibly selective with when and where he utters his curse speech, for the first major move in this competition to be served up via the telephone was nothing short of ingenious. I never saw it coming, even though I probably should have. Despite rarely stringing together a coherent thought, he's able to strike fear into the minds and hearts of everyone he faces. As I pointed out earlier, Inumaki can passively nerf the entire opponent team simply by being there.
Just speaking.
So in other words,
just talking.
Akutami's showcasing of Inumaki as a character is packaged within a game type that specifically emphasizes his incredible and unique utility without ever needing to say or do anything. That is phenomenal and very considerate storytelling. Secondly, what makes Inumaki work is how Akutami has chosen to restrict his character. What makes a hero isn't necessarily the fact that they save people. It's the fact that they save people despite the constant sacrifices they need to make in order to do so. In Inumaki's case, it's not that he can't speak, It's that he chooses not
Not to, yeah.
both for his own well-being and for the protection of those around him, which means Akutami has created a character whose voluntary silence necessarily comes packaged with sacrifice and heroism, two vital ingredients that make a hero. And thirdly, there's the tried and true hero method that always works. The ability to perform under extreme pressure.
Stop it!
Holy shit! Now that chaos has firmly replaced order and these students have found themselves in a battle for literal survival against truly dangerous and evil entities, Inumaki is quite literally the only thing standing between them and certain doom. And he hasn't even played offense yet. Everything he's done has been defensive. The closest thing you could argue he's done for offense is make a girl fall asleep.
Yeah,
We've seen how terrifyingly powerful this creature that's hunting them is, and yet with one word, stop, Inumaki halts that freak in its tracks, allowing both Megumi and Noritoshi, two powerful characters in their own rights, free attacks on this cursed creature. And the most terrifying part of it all is these attacks have hardly
Done anything,
scratched
yeah,
it.
no.
It's such an incredible build-up and utilization of a silent character type, and I call it incredible because it leaves us wondering, what if this one character who's making their survival possible starts to fade sooner than expected? Suddenly, the tension surges
And
as
here
the
we
true
go.
scope of this villain's power comes into focus. Without using any strong words and having only used his power a few simple times, this creature has taken Inumaki to his limit. So what's next? Well, this is where the final layer of Akutami's characterization of Inumaki comes into play. He doesn't give up.
Blast away!
This is just so awesome. Oh, wait, Maki made the save now. Okay, God. I love this so damn... Like, this is easily the most thrilling sequence of the entire story so far. Honestly, it's near perfect. And the best part is, it only gets more tense because Gojo can't come to the rescue.
Yeah.
He's stuck outside. And meanwhile... I don't actually have anything to say about that. I just thought it was funny.
Yes.
Anyway...
Really weird.
Don't lose your
Way in the dark. Yeah, it's what a shoot.
All that training Yuji and Todo performed off-screen while plot was happening. And this is where we finally hear of a certain technique Yuji has been practicing. A technique that is so difficult to time that the best wielder in the world, Nanami, has only ever landed it 4 consecutive times. The move Todo wants Yuji to attack
The Black
Hanami with,
Flash.
well, it's called Black Flash.
Yeah.
Yuji and Todo versus Hanami. So, as you've seen throughout this review, I've examined each of these fights as their own individual stories to see how successful Akutami is, not just as a writer, but specifically a writer of battle shonen. And as you've seen, I think he's been immensely successful and considerate with his approach. But I'm not going to take that same approach with this fight. I'm not going to treat it like its own self-contained story. I'm not going to do that because this isn't some intimate story. This is the main plot of the entire series unfolding before us. The coming-of-age moment for the young but talented Yuji as he comes face-to-face with another member of that sinister group that has already caused him so much pain. As we've been told, anger and intense negative emotion is what connects Yuji to his cursed energy. And interestingly, it's that very pain which makes Yuji fail to hit Black Flash. Just like in a real fight, revenge, anger, and contempt are and can be wonderful motivators, but blinding rage does exactly the opposite. It impedes you. It blinds you.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not all doom and gloom here. Yuji has Todo in his corner, and more than that, because the entire arc has spent its runtime trying to convince us that Yuji isn't all that and a bag of chips, when he does eventually fight in this episode, it's staggering how much more competent his approach to combat is. Closing the distance, he takes clever precaution, and when it comes time for him to retry his Black Flash attack...
With tremendous concentration.
Black Flash!
He hits it! The man hits it! He hit the fucker! And guess what? Now that the student has become the master, it's time for some double team, baby.
Let's go.
I'll take this moment to
This
say
fight's
once
so
again, particularly
good.
in this sequence, The animation is superb,
Yeah.
coupled with a conscious effort to display their brotherly teamwork brilliantly. I haven't gotten a chance to speak about Hanami yet, but with him or her or it, I don't know, being a manifestation of humanity's torturing of the natural world around them, my favorite element of this team-up sequence has to be how Hanami's counter to their attack is achieved by removing their footing, followed by the curse quipping, "Learn how great the land is." This counter literally speaks to Hanami's message and broader motivation that says humanity lacks appreciation for the ground they stand upon. It's a really solid inclusion, and more than that, Todo and Yuji, despite being in no position to dodge, they use each other, their teamwork, their bromance. To
So
evade
good.
the
Oh, this is so
oncoming
good.
attack.
So
It is
sick.
all such a wonderfully choreographed clash, and it's only just begun. Wait a sec. Hold on.
Yep. Yep. Oh yeah.
Boogie Woogie.
Fuck, that's good. Okay.
Yeah, the
His
Boogie Woogie.
ability,
Hasn't been formally demonstrated yet, except it has for one or two
two moments. Oh, I love this.
this show. Okay, it is
Perfect. JJK
Oh,
gave us all plenty of opportunity to see
I like that they were switching between the editor. I'm guessing that was quite cool.
the move without explicit explanation or demonstration, only to surprise us with its application here. So much of this competition has placed focus on Toto's strength with hardly anything on his abilities. These are the kind of swerves I watch and read stories for. What an incredible moment, and what an insanely powerful technique when fighting alongside an ally.
Oh,
All
mate,
this
so
switching is
good.
discombobulating even for me to watch, so I can only imagine what it would be like to actually fight someone doing that to me. And hilariously, this smooth teamwork, this match made in heaven, only further legitimizes my claim that Yuji and Todo, henceforth known as Toduji, is the best anime couple of all time. Jokes aside though, this fight is everything I want from a battle shonen, and then some and more. There's a healthy amount of good messaging touting the virtues of friendship and tenacity, all the while legitimately some of the best comedy I've seen in an anime is delivered. Todo is priceless. His mind palace is literally a fictional school he attends with Yuji and his crush. His crush literally helps him think through the appropriate strategy when confronted with
Yeah.
those cursed root things that took out Megami earlier. It's all just so ridiculous and funny, and not in a contrived way either, miraculously. All of these solutions he comes to are perfectly within the scope of his understanding and are just understated enough for us to be entertained by it. I cannot express just how complicated and difficult narratively that is to achieve, and Akutami makes it look effortless. And it keeps getting better! What the fuck? Why hasn't someone clubbed me over the head, tied me to a chair, and forced me to watch this series?
Yeah.
Just when I thought Megami's disproportionately light role in this arc was my only major criticism, we get this. Calling back to one of the few Megami training sequences leading up to this event, Akutami pays off that scene with this moment I again never saw coming. And it keeps getting better. Hanami can heal its wounds by absorbing the life force from the plants around him, which again is another nice metaphor for what Hanami hates about humanity. The more humanity fights against nature, or in this case Hanami, the more nature is forced to pay the difference.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no, it's over? I mean, I'm happy and also terrified to see Gojo, of course, but to tell you the truth, I could have watched another 3 episodes of this fight alone,
yeah,
but there's
mate.
no time for that because Gojo needs to send Hanami blasting off again. Hey, someone give this guy a hand.
Why are you the way that you are?
Yeah, but seriously, the bad guys got what they came for. All the fingers of Sukuna and this weird thing called a Cursed Wounds Death Painting. I don't know, there's 3 of them. I haven't spoken much about Geto so far in this series, and that's more or less been the case because he's not overextended himself like characters such as Jogo and Mahito have. But in episode 21, that patience...
But again, I find it weird that he's not mentioned him because he's seen the movie. Does he not recognize him? Does he not see him? It's like, I would have at least, like, made some sort of, I don't
And
know.
intelligence is brought into focus as he breaks down how he managed to formulate a plan that allowed him to capture all of Sukuna's fingers in the hero's possession, all the while not arousing the suspicion of Gojo. Small details like making sure that they sealed Gojo out of the veil instead of inside it so as to not draw attention to where their interests lie really serve to emphasize that Geto isn't just capable, but frighteningly intelligent. Every moment in this story where the bad guys have thought the wrong thing due to lack of information gets thrown out the window as Geto makes educated but still accurate guesses as to why certain things have played out as they have. Writing intelligent characters can often be a very difficult enterprise. Lesser writers will often write smart characters as if their intelligence is magic, but Geto? Akutami achieves something that's special. He feels like a real, genuinely smart person. The dots he connects are impressive, but not unreasonable. This is to say, I'm in love with Akutami's style as a writer. I'll say it. He's fantastic. But whatever the case may be, the date is October 31st. On Halloween night, shit goes down. Apparently.
What the hell is that?
Mechamaru is a pitching machine, which, one, holy whiplash, and two, that actually makes sense. All kidding aside, the brief respite the second half of this episode offers is a welcomed one. But the primary plot
Nice
element
chill
here
down with
is
everyone
the
getting to know
conversation between
everyone.
the two regional principals. The Kyoto principal, I'll call him KP, has until now been a fairly two-dimensional force of evil ready to kill a teenager. But I think this conversation serves to illuminate his stance in a way that adds meaningful nuance. It's not about a like or dislike of Yuji, but rather a fundamental belief in the risk he poses. Someone like Yuji is forbidden to exist in Jujutsu law. His existence puts the greater population at risk, and so all personal feelings must be put aside when confronted with that fact. The Tokyo principal's response, I'll call him TP, is equally illuminating. Other than admitting that he himself is unsure about whether his belief in letting Yuji live is the right one, he speaks about regret in this context, and Geto's face covers the screen during it. There's a parallel being created here. History is being alluded to, and I cannot wait to see what that entails. And so with that, as well as a Halloween madness promise around the corner, Akutami for me is pulling all the right tension levers. But first, murder mystery! Okay, I lied. This isn't much of a murder mystery at all. The actual plot of these 3 episodes is fairly light in the grand scheme of things, honestly. It's basically just, hey, you had fun at the tournament, right? Cool, here's some suffering. Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara get sent to investigate a bunch of deaths only to find out it's because of some cursed bridge. Except, no, Megumi's fighting a finger bearer. Is that right? Cursed finger holder, maybe. Fingered cursed. Oh god, definitely not. Okay. This is happening all the while others are up against a goddamn JoJo character and his blobby looking brother. Megumi unlocks main character energy, Nobara does some psycho tier voodoo, and Yuji gets another dose of trauma. And so in the end, sure, our lovely trio have basically leveled up, but they are left questioning basically their entire life. Fun. And you know what? That sounds simple, right? But I think what it offers in character work and setup is a meaningful conclusion to many of the first season's themes. Throughout much of the story, Megumi's being a restrained fighter, someone who strategizes and thinks of others. If things look bad, he can always just sacrifice himself to win. In most battles shonen, that's kind of the picture-perfect mentality. I guess I should have expected Akutami to not play by the rules because it turns out jujutsu sorcery is a selfish game. At the same time, this arc drops some fascinating information about Megumi's backstory. He was born out of wedlock to his father, who was originally part of the Zenin clan, who then sold him back to them for the sake of his technique. At the same time, it turns out the sister, the girl who we saw many episodes ago, is in a curse-induced coma. It's like everything about Megumi's personality suddenly clicks into place. He is a protector, a virtuous fighter, selfless and pure. He wants to be everything his childhood was deprived of, and yet, in spite of this,
dying to win and risking death to win are completely different, Megumi.
He has to be selfish. He has to be willing to believe he can push beyond his current limits. This inner turmoil is what drew Sukuna to him all those episodes ago, and the answer is right here.
Imagine a future version of myself who's freely surpassed my limits. Oh, I can do that! Domain expansion!
And yes, this might be incomplete, but this marks the first step in Megumi's journey. What a way to cap off this character's Season 1 arc. On the flip side, Yuji is forced to contend with a challenge that ultimately may never actually have a real answer. All throughout this series, Yuji has struggled to come to terms with the necessity of killing. And while that same dilemma is presented once again with him and Nobara's killing of the two brothers, it's the reveal that follows this that I think offers the most interesting twist to not only his own dilemma, but the one that's presented itself during the two principals conversation. Yuji consuming Sukuna's finger was a trigger. It woke Sukuna's fingers across the nation. It resulted in not just the death of innocents within this arc, but of the many other moments we've seen in this series so far. And I love the way that Akutami leaves this fact unspoken for now. Megumi and Nobara know it, Yuji knows it, but neither will acknowledge it for fear of what that confrontation and the reality of the situation may entail. It's a ticking clock, and just one of many this arc concludes with. The remaining brother of the trio is out there. The Shibuya plot lingers in the background, and with how smoothly the villain's infiltration of the Kyoto event went, a suspected mole within the school exists, with Gojo on the hunt. Jujutsu Kaisen's first season has laid some of the best groundwork for a series I've seen in quite some time, frankly, and I cannot wait to dive into the movie and the first part of season 2 next week. It's been a genuine surprise finding out just how much this series connects with me, and I hope you're having just as much fun watching along. For now though, I've been Totally Not Mark, and I will see you all next time.
So wait. He's already done the movie. So what? I don't know. We'll wait and see. We'll check it out. Yeah, some of the stuff he was talking about, it's like, oh god, you don't know, you don't have a clue. But I'm excited to see what he has to say as we carry on with these. But yeah, awesome. Thanks for watching.